Good evening, viewers. You're watching To The Point. I'm Preeti Choudhary. I want to completely now cut across to Pinky Anand, Senior Advocate and former ASG, on her perspective on what we are witnessing right now. Ms. Anand, appreciate you taking the time out this evening and joining us on To The Point. Now, my first question is a question that many people right now are asking in the country. We've seen one lower court after the other take up, many would suggest, a very sensitive, contentious issue of places of worship. Is it in any which way? We've seen the Varanasi Sessions Court do it. We've seen a lower court in Mathura do it today. Is it in any sense violation of the Places of Worship Act 1991?
The first question, Preeti, that I would respond to you on is the fact whether the Places of Worship Act itself is constitutional or not. The second issue which I think I have in mind is the fact that whether to the Kashi temple itself and the site in question, does the Ancient Archaeological Act of 1958 apply, or is it the Places of Worship Act? So I think if you look at these two questions, there will be a major difficulty, because ultimately this act was passed in 1991, of course at a time of huge crisis. Despite the fact that it was so controversial, it was not sent to a select committee. It bars judicial review, so you ultimately do not have any recourse, and on that ground alone, one of the major challenges to the act would survive in its own way. So the finding of trial courts is one part of it, but the Supreme Court itself has entertained the petition whereby the same subject matters have been challenged of the Places of Worship Act 1991, and the fact that the Supreme Court has entertained the petition itself is indicative of the fact that there is some substance to the argument that the act itself is unconstitutional, and of course, as I said, the second part of it, whether the act itself applies or not, is a moot question.
Now, we'll come to the Ayodhya judgment as well, but now you bring up the Supreme Court. But the other question, which, because it's of high interest to a lot of citizens in this country, especially the fact that the Supreme Court has, gone ahead with what the Sessions Court said to seal the area where the, claimed shivling has been found. Is this a way that the Supreme Court has accepted that there is a shivling? Or it's gone ahead and accepted the order of the Sessions Court by sealing it?
You're right. I mean, ultimately the Supreme Court has found some substance by protecting the shivling area in question. What was the purpose otherwise of protecting that area? And of course, at the same time, for other directions as far as the prayers were concerned, but the protection of the site area in question, which is somewhat of the disputed area, and of course some of the reports that have come out are indicative of the fact that there is enough evidence possibly, and incidentally Babri Masjid, the case also was based upon the fact that there seems to be enough evidence to indicate that there is a shivling, a lotus, a trishul, carvings, and all those issues. Of course, some of those are not substantiated so far. These are news reports that have come out. But the fact that the Supreme Court has protected definitely indicates that there is some substance to the argument that the shivling was there and the temple existed, which seems to be historical accuracy, which cannot be disputed.
Ma'am, legally, do you see this go exactly the way as the Babri, what happened after Babri, then the Ayodhya land dispute? Is it going exactly the same way? Of course, there is no demolition of the structure, but legally speaking?
Well, Preeti, there are a number of similarities definitely to the issues in question. I mean, there is partial demolition here, partial which happened during the time of Aurangzeb and whatever the history records it. And definitely there are disputed sections which are claiming the privilege of the area of worship in question. So one, of course, the petitioners who had filed the petition in the first place, seeking the opportunity to give prayers at the shivling and to enter that area, and the other, of course, the Muslim segment, which is claiming its rights to continue with the mosque and not to have any intervention at that stage. So this is exactly somewhere where the Babri Masjid also headed, with three disputing contestants as far as the issue is concerned. How it would go, I'm afraid I would find it impossible to predict. Right. But I can say, and again the evidence part of it. For example, the evidence that came out in Babri Masjid itself was indicative of the fact of the rights of the temple and the deity to have continuation of worship in that area. Similar appears to be forthcoming in the present matter, Of course, we will know in due course, because the Special Commissioner also has submitted the report. The report has not been made public, I repeat, but whatever one has seen from the indications and of the course of the Supreme Court also passing an order appears to indicate that there is no ambiguity whatsoever. It is certain that a shivling did exist. However, the determination and the adjudication process will of course go on and decide the ultimate issues in hand. Whether it goes exactly the same way as the Babri Masjid went, in the sense that the Hindus were given another site to build a temple and to offer their worships there, and that is the manner in which the issue was held, I cannot say, but well, there are always reasonable possibilities. You have a large bench, constitution bench, which ultimately rendered the judgment, which has been enforced, and we've seen those times. It came out of Lucknow and finally landed up in the Supreme Court, and all the legal arguments having been considered, it was ultimately held that everybody's rights should be protected, and that is the manner in which the Babri Masjid judgment went. This judgment, we will see how it will run in the course of time. There are some other issues involved, including the Places of Worship Act and the application and the Ancient Archaeological Act of 1958. So we will have to let the law takes its own course.